Wow, so well behaved. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Georgia Close. I hold the role of Head of Learning here at the National Gallery, and it's my very great pleasure to welcome you to the Gallery and to the National Visual Art Education Conference for 2024. We are truly a national group, but also an international group today, with a number of guests joining us from overseas. And we have delegates here from across the country attending in person and online. We've been so thrilled at the response from the arts education community to this conference. It's our biggest NVAEC ever attendance ever since the event began almost 10 years ago. And we look forward to 3 big days of conversation, ideas and connection. I'd like to thank Uncle Paul Girawa House and his son Reuben for welcoming us to country this afternoon and for their beautiful music and words. If you look closely around the grounds of the gallery, you'll see Uncle Paul's work, Mulungari Yowang, from 2020, featuring the traditional tree carving practice of his people that he spoke to us about this afternoon. I would also like to acknowledge the visual art education associations from each state who have worked closely with the National Gallery team in the development of this conference, from their initial consultations about driving themes and issues to being part of the curatorium who programmed the Teachers' Voice presentations and workshops to help us ensure that the voices and practice of teachers are central to our conference experience. Thanks so much to the association representatives who are here with us on site and also online and at our satellite gatherings at Form in Boorloo, Perth and the University of Tasmania, Nipaluna, Hobart. I would also like to thank our Auslan interpreters who are with us online and also on site. Mandy and Cherie, thank you for being here. Thanks so much. Our conference theme of repositioning invites us to consider the ways in which we are constantly shifting and reconsidering new ways of thinking and working in our practice as educators to achieve the best outcomes for our learners and communities. In the conversations we had with teaching communities as we started shaping the conference, the issues that rose to the top of our discussions with urgency were around approaches to foregrounding First Nations knowledges in teaching and learning. And I would like to acknowledge my colleagues in First Nations Learning at the National Gallery, Maggie Douglas and Noah Watson, who are an integral part of the conference team, along with the First Nations artists and educators and curators who are presenting as part of the conference, and those attending on site and online. The conference also considers the increasing prevalence of artificial intelligence in our world and the opportunities we have to engage with changing technologies in our practice. Gender equity, as Paul mentioned, is a driving issue for the National Gallery, and as such the program has been developed through a gender equity lens. Issues relating to inclusion and the health and well-being of both learners and educators continue to be a central concern. The conference invites us to share new ways of working in this space, thinking about how the experiences we shape help affirm the identities of our learners and foster a sense of belonging, while building understanding and awareness of those whose lives and experiences present different perspectives and opportunities to learn and grow in new ways. And as part of this, we think about how we continue to support the well-being of our communities by coming together through creative experiences in times of conflict and violence across the world, and the continuing social and economic pressures faced by communities across Australia at this time. For those of us in the school system, we think about what agency we have to influence systemic reform and how can we continue to be change makers within our schools and organisations. The idea of repositioning was very much influenced by the work of my colleague Kelli Cole, who along with Hetty Perkins is the curator of the wonderful Emily Karma and Ware exhibition, which our on-site audience will experience in a special viewing this evening. Kelli, we're so delighted that you are presenting the opening keynote of the conference and situating our experience within the context of your incredible work on this exhibition. Thank you. Kelli is a Warumungu and Luritja woman from Central Australia who is a curator of special projects within the National Gallery's First Nations portfolio. Kelli has worked on major projects at the Gallery since 2007, including the National Indigenous Art Triennial and a major installation of the Seven Sisters with the Jumpy Desert Weavers as part of the Gallery's Know My Name initiative. Through their work on the Emily, Karma and Ware exhibition, Kelli and Hetty have repositioned curatorial practice by embedding the development of the exhibition firmly within the artist community through extensive collaboration and consultation. This work has been informed by a commitment to reframing the artist and her practice within the community and country that were integral to her art making. Before Kelli takes the stage, we would like to share the beautiful short film about Emily Kama and Ware that is featured in the exhibition so that our online audience can also get a visual sense of the artist's country and community. We are welcoming questions from both our on-site and online audience through the online Slido platform. If you're with us in the theatre, you can use the gallery's free Wi-Fi, head to slido.com or use the QR code on the screen and use the code NVAEC24 to post your question. Just one little announcement. If anyone has lost a pair of glasses, please see the wonderful Christine to the side, either now or at the end of the session, and you can collect them. And with that, we hope you enjoy the film. Thanks so much.
Used to be Emily Kama ultimate campaigning. That's done a lot of right in the country. I can't run in Craig for Kirangan the elephant. I will yan with a Craig la Kakana. Malora Lano Kinkan. Quite full for I can't wear an answer. Happy and Kalaka and the Kalulatakan, Marano Kinkanolan. All aunties, when they making colors and they put culture on their body. That's what we're doing now, today. I told Katan old Patan a put a throw in Norachel. I'll can you Ireland. Chapalali Kodachel, I read the Kanakowal, Onangwal, or like you. I love the Malay Kanyan in Kodachel.
Awajak yung kornatam country. Arangi katanan meteramala. Nam tari katanan. Wala ka korngeteram. Film meladam right. Natcha environment. And happy and strong and natcha kalapa wajalan pa. Country ano king karan.
I want any coroner, Emily. Yemiol. Nanya manangro onta na walakan lal krelan onta cham manangkat pipe tan ma andi nyanda la kanan onta cham.
Itu dapat color mana yang dokternya kuana namla kaitnya kenapa?
Ada lampular kran matilan ningkat ngaru la kaitnya dantuk. Emily. Nai maning kara lora nyani paran wala kanyara nanaran nai ngane paran ada le ora chiking moram
Muraran terpacim painting nana maricik radam kam warai kan. Anu pengiraman nak ndara mengal mo pernana. Painting aran yang ngoan dapat lai pada rajung baran. Tas wera dampir paintan. Anu alter anu kuat tor kecil. Ampak kejipan kaya anu alter entaya. Anu kan lana alter kaya nacir. Rana pietat. Marang anu kan lana. Kama kan country.
Hi everyone. I'm just going to get this ready on my next slide. There we go. I'm talking quite quietly at the moment because it's such a hard act to follow with all those beautiful women. So my name is Kelli Cole. I'm a Warumungu and Luritja woman. I grew up in Central Australia between Alice Springs and Darwin. It has been an absolute privilege to have worked on this exhibition with my colleague Hetty Perkins, who I consider my sister. We've been working on this exhibition for about 2.5 years and have been able to live in and out of community. So this exhibition that you will see or online, get to see some of the paintings, is Emily Kama and Ware. It's not necessarily a major retrospective, but a living exhibition, and it's been, just such a pleasure to have done it. Emily Kamarampara was undoubtedly one of the most influential and acclaimed artists of the 20th century, both here and abroad. Her life spanned most of that century during the time she experienced firsthand the before and after of Australian history, life before whitefellas and life after, with all of its ardent challenges and tragedies our people faced on the frontier, colonial frontier. Her life and art are inexplicably a part of the country she was born in and rarely left, Alulkra and Aṉangu, the sibling country, and the wider Sandover region. However, her work of art and reputation travelled vast distances across the globe, and she became one of those peoples who everyone knew her name, Emily, a whitefella name, like many given to our people on stations and missions throughout the land. But as she said, she was Karma, and this was the name that was given to her from her family. She's also known as Karma, her skid name, by which she is known in her community, or affectionately, the old lady, the famous artist. In understanding the artist's name, we can begin to understand her art. Karma are the seeds and pods of the Nurla, the pencil yam. As the artist said herself, this is what she painted, whether in wax or acrylics. The specificity doesn't limit meaning, or on contrary, it refers to an opportunity for a greater understanding of the complexity of a worldview that is revealed in her art. Like the vines of Ranula, What you can see in her art is only a part of the story. It has subterranean depths and cultural roots that cannot be seen, only known and felt. A sensation enhanced by the power challenged in the artist's making of art and mark making, a rigour which further underscores the intentionality of the artist. In the catalogue for the exhibition, Jetta Nware and Josie Purvis Kunoth offer an invitation to us. Close your eyes and imagine the paintings in your mind's eyes and you will see them transformed. That powerful country changes colour, just like her paintings do. The country transforms itself and those paintings do as well. They are real. What Emily painted is alive and true. This is why this exhibition is described as a living retrospective. Nware's art is alive and true, plumbing the vast cultural knowledge of her country, Alokra. For Nware, it was because she was painting her country that compelled audiences worldwide. Looking at the paintings, they think, the old lady keeps on painting her country, that one place, Alokra, the place where she lived for a long time. Many think that the paintings are wonderful, but the country in itself is amazing and magical. We will be forever personally indebted to the Nware and Lulkra and Aṉangu country women and our co-editor, Dr. Jennifer Green, who did such a wonderful job as a cultural custodian and looking after Nware's archive material, including the singing that you see in the video that has been with Dr. Jennifer Green since the 1980s when she first met Emily Kama Nware, and we were able to use that archival voice when we went to the women's camp, and the women can sing along. They know the song, but they sang along with the old lady, as they like to call her. It is also due to the artist community endorsement that this project has received such unprecedented support, and we acknowledge and pay tribute to the Nware family for framing and reframing these paintings. They brought such a different perspective to what we had when we were looking at doing a selection. There's also a wonderful series of works called a summer project that you will also see. 81 paintings that were painted in 88, 89. Emily Kamanware was a part of the series with these 81 paintings and 81 artists. During the opening events, we were also privileged to have 17 of the Aṉangu and Pitjantjatjara ladies here, who are the contemporary custodians of that country. They danced and they shared their wulya, their ceremony, with us here at the National Gallery. You also saw a bit of that in the film. They have shown us that Nware's art is much more than visual art. It's not often that we are invited to close our eyes when we visit exhibitions and look at paintings in textiles. They invited us to close our eyes so we can feel the power of Nware's Amatjira country and culture. The work in this exhibition are transformative and truthful, and it's the ultier, or the dreaming, which is all around us and within us. We share this as Aboriginal people, and artists like Nware offer us the invitation to all Australians, as well as a fundamental truth. This is Aboriginal land, always was and always will be. So Emily Kamanware was one of the greatest artists. She was born Australian artist. She was born around 1914. Previous dates have been 1910. We did major research into census on properties all around Utopia to find where Emily was living with her husbands, with her family, to sort of come down to a date, 1914. This was really important for us because the previous date of 1910 made her seem a lot older than she was, and it was a date that no one really knew. Sounded great, it was rounded up. But we can now 100% identify the fact that she was born on 1914 on her country of Alokra, where she grew up in the bush, at a time when very few white fellas had made their way to the ancestral lands that was known to her family. In the 1970s, she took up batik, and in 1988, she changed over to painting on canvas. The Utopia Batik Group was established in 1978, and Nware became one of the most senior active batik members. She produced batik over a decade before moving on to the painting medium for 8 years prior to her death. Her first painting, Imi Woman, 1988-89, as I said, was a part of the A Summer Project, a landmark exhibition that was first exhibited in Sydney at the S.H. Irwin Gallery. Imi Woman highlighted a particular point in the genesis of Nware's artistic practice. It evokes and proclaims Nware's custodial right and responsibilities to her country, Alokra, and reflects a special role of the Imu or Ankara as one of the main themes in Alokra Awilya or ceremony. Imu Woman is featured in the foyer of the exhibition, a part of the women's paintings. The paintings in this collection show ceremony scenes including women's Awilya and everyday life, gathering, hunting together, hunting bush animals and collecting bush foods. The paintings reflects complex roles and relationships between the group of a Yaura and a Majira artists and the artists of their culture and their country. This was the first time this collection had ever been displayed entirely outside of the first exhibition in Sydney. So the other thing I'm going to talk a bit about today, as Julia mentioned, is collaboration. We used to refer to it as consultation, but collaboration with the community was so important for us. So, like I said, Hetty and I, the co-curator of this exhibition, lived in and out of Alice Springs for about 2.5 years, so we could be close to the Utopia community, which is 240 kilometres northwest of Alice Springs. In March 2023, I was fortunate enough to take a group of 9 ladies to Perth, to the Janet Holmes Court collection, who is the owner of the Summer Project, so the 81 works, including a lot of other paintings and batiks which we've loaned for this exhibition. So up here we have the wonderful Jetta, Judy and Jean. You see them in the photo. We went and had a look and had a wonderful day of pulling out all of those shelves while I was selecting works for the exhibition. But I wasn't aware that these 3 artists were artists who were also involved and painted in the Summer Project. We spent days of going through batiks, not only of the old lady, Emily Kamanware, but also looking at their batiks. So this exhibition has not only, seen Hetty and I have this rich and amazing experience of looking at her work and meeting this family, but we were able to do bush camps and also take these women to Perth and also to Sydney. I said this before, but I call Hetty Perkins is a colleague, a friend, and now my sister. We have lived together for quite some time. She is an Aranda and a Kalkadoon woman. You would know her father and her family. She is Charlie Perkins' daughter and the wonderful sister of Rachel Perkins, who just did the first Australian, wars. It has been an absolute honour to share this experience with her. So as co-curators, you're not on this journey alone. When you are selecting a painting or a work, you are doing it alongside a friend and a colleague, and we did it all together. So here in this screen here, or slide, you can see what the collaboration looked like. So like I said, 2.5 years of going in and out of our community. Here's a photo up top when we go to, again, another photo of the women holding their beautiful paintings, which is in the summer series. Myself sitting around with not only women, but also the children, and then looking at previous catalogues. When over the period of doing this exhibition, we would have major selections. I think we started off with 180 or 250 paintings that we were looking at. And Hetty and I travelled extensively here in Australia to all the major institutions, but we were fortunate enough to travel internationally. I know my job is terrible. I get to go overseas and really enjoy it. But we went to New York and we went to Switzerland. But every single one of those paintings that we wanted to include in this exhibition was placed in this A 3 catalogue, and we would spend hours going through each painting. And this happened over months. We had different versions of it. And every time we wanted a different painting, we would take it back to the community. The community would spend time, all the ladies, looking at that painting. We've been able to distinguish a colour of a painting that's green as emu egg green. That was never identified before, and it's very obvious, obviously, Nware painted a lot of emu paintings. So again, when you look at that slide, the photos began with portraits. So the very first portrait we have of Nware, which is also in the exhibition, is very beautiful, very regal. There's hundreds of photos of Nware in many other publications and many other online. They're not all that flattering of her. None of us want a photo of ourselves online that's not flattering or we don't like or our family members wouldn't. So we were very, very conscious of the fact that we wanted to represent her as this beautiful, strong woman who she was. So we showed all the photos to the family. We have lots of images of ceremonial paintings, painting up, the women painting up in the catalogue as well, archival ones. And again, with looking at those images, we showed all family members these images of women painted up. And if we didn't know who was in the photo, and if someone did, we would go and find those family members to ask permission to have those photos. So it's sort of a protection of that community, but it was also a protection for myself because as an Aboriginal woman, I didn't want to do anything wrong, and there's always this fear of getting it right when you do a First Nations exhibition. So this is just a lovely sort of, idea of what it looks like when we're there. I also mentioned that in March, this is getting hotter. We went out and did a women's trip. We did a couple of, hunting and gathering and stuff, but we went out for a 3-day trip. And the ladies, again in the video, you see that we go to a lulkra. We get to see this beautiful country. It's a vast country, and then there's this rock place called a lulkra. So, we go to this lulkra, which is this sort of a monolithic, big rock formation with a hole in it. Not many people have visited there. It is quite remote. It is on an excised part of land of native title that you need permission to go to this country. So we had to go through all the permit systems, get permissions to take the women back to this country that they haven't been to for quite some time. So again, in the video, you see we arrive at country, the women introduce themselves to this country, we get introduced to this country, and then we went off to day 2. It was like 46 degrees. And day 2, we go to this gorgeous waterhole where you see the women not just swimming, but bathing. And we knew that evening that they were going to paint themselves up in their ochres, their traditional body paint, and do that amazing Awilya ceremony for us. But the reason we went to this beautiful rock hole wasn't just so they could show us we can get the gorgeous pictures. It was also for them to cleanse themselves, to prepare themselves to paint up for the Awilya. So you would see the women use emu, I'll go back here, the shiny substance on their skin, they use emu fat to prepare their bodies prior to them putting ochre onto their bodies. And interesting, when we were filming this with Tamarind Tree Pictures, who do this amazing film for the exhibition, who are going to do a major Imlikama Nware ABC documentary, we knew that there were going to be a lot of beautiful breasts painted up. And, someone asked, it wasn't me, but someone asked, are you okay for this to be on film? And the ladies, I think it was Josie Pijara, who's in the beanie, said, when we have our body paint on, it's like our armour. We're not that we're invincible, but we feel strong and connected to our country. So we're putting our ceremony on us and we are really strong. So yes, here we are with the ladies sort of painting themselves up. Again, in the film, this is an extraordinary part of the process. We were able to capture all of these beautiful photographs which eventually ended up in the catalogue. This wasn't the reason we were taking all of these photos or tamarind tree pictures, who took them, but it was just a wonderful, something that just happened, and they're in the extraordinary catalogue, women painting up and dancing on this extraordinary country. I totally lost where I was because I always do way too much talking. Slide 8. So here we are, 1976. Dr. Jennifer Green, who I spoke about before, who is a linguist and has worked in Utopia for quite some time. She met Emily Kamaware in 1975 and they became friends. Dr. Jennifer Green was there to work with the Utopia women, establishing literacy and numeracy, and also art and craft. So this is where the textile dyeing classes come in. And so here you've got Inware learning how to tie-dye. And then to the other side, pardon me, she is learning to paint or do a batik on a cloth. So not silk batik at the moment, but a cotton cloth. In 1978, Julie Murray became the founding member and coordinator for the Utopia Batik group, with Inware being her most senior artist. The outdoor batik studio comprised of rough shade shelters, open fires and melting wax boiling. The works were hung out to dry on bushes and fences. One of Inware's earliest batiks from Julia Murray's collection has bold stripes and spans the length. It's like a numeracy literacy text. I'll show you that when we get to that, sorry. But again, here we have, they're moving on and using the jutting, little cone to apply the wax. So if anyone who knows how to do batik, I've only seen it when I was 16, when I went out to Utopia to watch the women. But where you apply the wax, that is like the negative, that is where the dye, once you place it in the dye, will not go through. And I'm sure there's people who do textiles out here. I'm just going to say that's absolute crap, Kelly. You didn't even explain that properly. But this is the women, learning how to do batik. And you see Inware in that beautiful cheesecloth sort of skirt and, hanging it over the bushes. Julia Murray behind her, teaching them how to do it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go, because there's quite a few people here online who aren't going to get to see the exhibition. I thought I would just talk about a couple of the works individually and how the practice sort of came to be. So here we are, two of the batiks. I was talking about Julie Murray's collection, and this batik, green and yellow. I'm terrible on my left and my right. I'm not trying to make jokes, I'm just telling you how it is. But the green and yellow batik was one of the first ones she did. And when Inware first, there's photos of her in the catalogue of first learning to write her name and write script on a piece of paper. Looking at this amazing batik, you can actually see this script of writing, her hand for the first time moving across with a pencil across a piece of paper, and also the first time Emily's hand, sort of goes from left to right, while this batik is spread out on her leg while she's sitting down and moving across this amazing cotton batik. On the right is a work from the National Collection entitled, created in 1981. It's work on cotton. Within this work, the distinctive features of Inware's later practice emerges. It intersects with the strokes and the grids. It has these amazing rondelles. This also was done with paintbrush, not just the jutting tool. It also is really extraordinary how Inware is taking these batiks to the very edges of the cloth, because when you will see how her works evolve and they get sort of borders around it. So this is one of the first works the National Gallery acquired, the red one. And again, when you get to the exhibition, these lines of the nurla, the yam, appear again. It appears right throughout the exhibitions, but it starts here in batik. The work is like a map of cultural meridians over Lalkra and a neighbouring sibling country, Alalkra. employing the metaphor of the pencil yam and the seeds and the seed pods. It's really important that we have images of what the yam looks like. So we keep talking about this yam that she paints and how important it is to her. So we talk about the top layer of the anura, the yam, which you see up the top. It's, just floats across like an entangled vine across the surface of the beautiful sand. You dig down quite a bit, and I did not, but I watched the ladies dig down a good several feet to find the yam root that you see on the right-hand side below, and Kama, the seed pod that we know her name is, so the little tiny white seed pod. And there's 3 different layers to this extraordinary yam that she paints over and over again. That is that significance. Why does she do it? Because it's so important. To identify it, to find it, you see the surface on the, like I said, on the red soil, and then the women just dig down till they find those beautiful roots and the seed pod. Here again, in the images, particularly in the 81 works that you see in a summer project, there are so many different food sources that are mentioned. There's the goannas and the emus that you hunt, but the gathering foods, so the ndukwa, which is a little beautiful round plant down the bottom, that is what the emu feeds on. So that is so important to the Ayawara and Majira people. For the emu eats those ndukwa, and the emu sustains the community. So it's this cycle of life, how you look after, these plants, and ceremony is a part of that, doing ceremony and thanking the country for producing all of this. Again, this is one of NVAEC's earlier batiks from 1988. This is in the Janet Holmes Court collection, and it is just another beautiful example of a batiks, emu dreaming. It's all the gorgeous emus, sacred grasses, awulya, and I mentioned before the border. Emily starting to change her style again very quickly. She's knowing that she can make these batiks, but she's created this extraordinary border around this batik, and it's almost like she's putting her awulya, her dreaming, onto these works. When you look at in the exhibition, you see the first 2 rooms. Take a peek around to some of the edges of the canvases, because they have these beautiful markings, like ceremonial markings and body markings on them. And that is what she's done with this batik. She started off with putting her awulya on the batik. It's just a really gorgeous work. I'm running out of time. I'm not even halfway through my slides. Emu Woman. This was the first painting Emily Kama Nware painted. It is a part of the summer series that I keep talking about, very important. You start the exhibition with the summer series. When you finish the exhibition, you come back. From the outset, Nware's paintings had this gravitational pull to them. The genesis of her work has already begun. This is the first painting. It is a standout painting. In a Majira culture, the respect accorded to the emu is reflected in an extensive vocabulary in terms that are applied to them. For example, there are words for a young emu, old ones, parts of its body, its neck, its feet, its feathers, the colour of it during its age, just like I started off at red, now I'm grey, the cycle of life. But they're a really important part of Emily doing her paintings of Emu Woman. Here's 2 other works, Old Man Emu and Babies, and Ankara, which is emu. The significance of Ankara, or emus, is apparent in the first few years of Nware's paintings. In Ankara, 1989, and entitled Old Man Emus and Babies, Nware prints emu footprints, mapping their path as they travel between soakages, with a paler colour palette implying the mature nature of the emu. Again, many people may know this, but I was not aware that when the female chick and the chicks hatch, the mother chick just leaves the emus to the father, and the fathers look after the emus. Maybe that's the reason why we don't have as many emus now, but that's a dig at us men, I'm sorry. But, you know, here in the beautiful one, Old Man Emu and Babies, if you can see the large footprints of the fathers walking along and little tiny footprints of the baby chick emus following them along country. Again, these linear works that you see in her earlier works in the batik, but instead of the circular, you know, iconography of the water holes or the water soakages, Nware is doing these amazing linear works. Same country, same story. A Lolkra, younger sibling, a Nankra, older sibling, a Yawara and a Majira people's country. You can see these in the title. I say them over and over again so that when you see them, you'll see she paints Kama, the sea pods, which refers to her name, Awulya, which is the women's ceremony, Ankara, which is the emu that she paints from the beginning and she continues to paint, a Lolkra, and there's a few others that we'll get to. This is one of the first works on paintings that the National Gallery of Australia acquired, Untan Streaming. Again, it's about the beautiful seeds. The woolly butt is the name whitefellas call it. And you see these extraordinary things like fingers that are standing upright. When this painting was first acquired, because she does so many body paint or breast paintings, it was assumed that these were breast paints, but they are the woolly butt. And the woolly butt is so important, known as sacred grasses, because they pull those little seeds that you see on top of it off, pull them off the woolly butt at certain times of the year in the dry when there's not much other food around to create this amazing paste. So this paste is what sustains them during the drier months. I am going to go faster. Her style is, we've gone to 1990, so started in 88, 1990, works here, larger scale, similar size canvases. You know, the dealers at this point, or the people who are representing her, realise that she is a prolific artist. She really loves painting. She's playing with a different colour palette now. Her paintings are getting beautiful and bright. The one in the middle has got more emu footprints, and it's the, you know, Song of an Emu. I can tell you now, Nware wouldn't have said Song of an Emu. Some of these titles were named with a, you know, by the dealers to give them this more flair and stuff. But she would have said this painting's about an emu, and you can definitely see the emu footprints. Ntanj, again, Seeds of Abundance was its previous title. We changed that title because she would have said maybe seeds everywhere. So Ntanj again means seeds, and Luritja, I said, is, you know, dreaming, it's always. So we've done that with a few of the works that we have in this exhibition. Again, just to, with that community consultation and that collaboration, and as two First Nations women, we wanted to bring this around to, you know, back to Emily. She is an international known artist, she is extraordinary, but bring that story back to this old lady on this community with her family, with living descendants, and tell that story from that community perspective. And so that name of Seeds of Abundance was again changed for that reason. This one here has got a lot of personal relationship with me. As I said, I grew up in Alice Springs. My uncle, Robert Ambrose Cole, was a very well-known painter in quite a few collections in the nation. His partner was Rodney Gooch. I haven't mentioned Rodney Gooch previously, but Rodney Gooch was the first coordinator that worked for the Central Australia Media Association, who took over the Utopia Batik group to make them bigger, to help them sort of, you know, expand, get funding. And my uncle Robbie Cole passed away in 1992, and this canvas was at my uncle Rodney's house, lent up against the wall. Now, Nware's 1996, she's getting old, she's getting a bit sickly now. And like I said, she was a prolific artist, and Rodney's sort of saying, you need a bit of a break, you don't need to paint. She grabbed this canvas, took it down the creek, and came back and put her own, you know, painting over the top of it. So when I get to see this painting every now and again, when it comes out for exhibitions, it's really beautiful, personal. I'm not crying this time. Usually I'm a big leaky eyes and cry every time I talk about it. But here you just have a beautiful work of Imare yam sort of gridded like on this beautiful painting here. Oh, I've got about 5 minutes. Many of you, particularly if you live in Canberra and been to the National Gallery before, would know this work, a Lolkra suite, so Emily's country. 22-panel canvas is being displayed in several different configurations, generally 3 in a row, 1 off to the side. I cannot take credit for this, but our extraordinary exhibition coordinator, designer, she just said, look, what does this painting represent? And I'm saying, well, it's just a huge, big kaleidoscopic view of country. You know, when you go out there and you see this country, it's just endless. It just goes on. It changes colours as the day goes on, and this is what Emily is painting. And then Jing just said, well, why don't we just make it the most big, long, painting that you can sort of walk along and, sort of feel that expanseness of country. So when you do get to see this painting in situ, it is one of those paintings that sits there on your chest. You feel that country, you feel that country is alive. And the exhibition, some of those rooms vibrate with energy, and it's almost like, the old ladies here, the ancestors are still here singing these works into this exhibition space. I just went off on a tangent on that one, sorry. We're sort of getting towards the end. So Imare changed, like I said, she just changed her, not only her colour palette, but the way she painted several different times. So here we are getting towards the end. We're in 1994. She is, again, getting elderly. So some of the art centre managers and her collectors are realising that, those big expansive paintings are getting too hard for her. So then they start bringing in these thinner panel works, and Imare starts painting body paint, so just a wulia, body paint across your arm, body paint across your chest, and body paint on your chest. And so these are these beautiful, rhythmic, precisely coordinated awulia paintings that are in the exhibition. I won't spoil it by saying how many are in a room, but this room does really, it's like a song. You can feel the rhythm of a song when you're in this exhibition space. In 1997, the year after Emily Kamamare passed away, herself, I've got to get this right now, Judy Watson and Yvonne Kumatri were all represented in the Australian Pavilion at the 57th Venice Biennale, and her works, it was called Fluent, and her body paint works were in that exhibition, and that was really, did not see it, but very beautiful. She went from these monochromatic black and white ones to again changing back to colour. This one here, for me, the National Gallery of Australia just acquired this last year, so we were very proud. 2002, years gone by fast, for the anniversary. We acquired a few works for this exhibition, not just to get our numbers up, but also to show that the National Gallery is, knows how amazing and significant this old lady is, and to have these works in our collection for the national collection, for the public to come and see, is just extraordinary. I think I just about got to the end. Last work. We go back to that yam, Anurla, that pencil yam. Why is that so important to her? I've talked about that. What you see on the top, you see in the different layers. This is an extraordinary work that was donated to the National Gallery of Australia. I used to think it was quite a large work until Big Yam NGV work sits beside it. And when you get to see that beautiful black and white monumental work, this is an extraordinary painting, but the scale of that work is extraordinary. What I will say about those two paintings, equally as beautiful, the fine weave of Yamawulia 1995, it's almost like they're tightly woven, beautiful sort of lengths of vine. And then when you see the big Yam Dreaming, the NGV work, it's sort of expanded out. The the knots aren't as tight, they're not as densely tied together. It's like one is so restricted and reduced and the other one is loose. And yeah, thank you very much. I do want to end with this. So on the opening night, the ladies that we had here, our director Nick Mitchevich is here. Dr. Jennifer Green is obviously in this wonderful photo, our big collaborator. We worked really closely with the Utopia Art Centre. Could not have done that without the two beautiful young women who work at the Utopia Art Centre, Sophia and Georgie. They are just so big, too important to us. But also on the opening, it was announced that this exhibition, or a part of this exhibition, will be going to the Tate Modern in 2025. So, and there's my sister, Hetty Perkins. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Come and have a seat. Oh, Kelly, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction to the exhibition and also to your practice and the artist country and community. I know those of you that are on site with us will be able to go and enjoy the exhibition shortly, but thank you for giving a sense of the exhibition to our online audience as well. Thanks so much to everyone who submitted some questions via Slido. We've got a little bit of time to ask Kelly some of these now. So Kelly, our first question, can you speak to how galleries can best support community-led curatorial projects?
Absolutely. This is my second time I've done a sort of an exhibition where I've made sure that the community is not, like I said, only consulting but collaborating with me. I think as First Nations curators, we don't have all the answers to these exhibitions. We're very specific on our own country and our own culture. And so when we work with others who are from other communities, we make sure that their voices are really heard and come through very strongly in the exhibition. With this exhibition, I would say we were fortunate enough to get a lot of funding from a major donor who could help us spend all that time in Alice Springs and on the community, and that helps. Because as exhibitions, you're always pinching for money, stealing from one budget to the other. But I would say the biggest pool of budget should be used if you are to work with not only living artists, because Emily's passed away, but with family members and, community members to work on these exhibitions. So yeah, that's key. Funding for everything is always key, but definitely 100% to work with the community and not just read texts. It's, there's so much thing that is regurgitated over and over again in other catalogues. I think it's really important to, even if you can't travel to those communities, get in contact with those art centres and see if, you can make a relationship to work on these exhibitions.
Thanks, Kelly. What is a key thing that you'd like our students to know about Emily Kama-Nware and Utopia Artists today?
I miss the part students. You won't be able to get funding, sorry. For you students, going back to the other question, I think it's about the research and about the relationships. So I will go back to that with students. Get the students to do a lot of research. Make sure you're looking at, if you're reading First Nations, you're looking at First Nations exhibitions, see if you can find First Nations curators who have written on those exhibitions, because our perspectives are different to non-Indigenous perspectives. And I'm not saying that, don't not read non-Indigenous stuff, but start with First Nation text and stuff first. On to your next question.
That's great advice, Kelly. Do you want me, as non-First Nations teachers, or as a non-First Nations teacher, how can I share First Nations art and culture in a primary school context without appropriating First Nations art making? That's the big question.
It's really interesting. There are so many, so go back to your thing about First Nations teachers and teaching in primary schools. Again, there are so many wonderful books out there written by extraordinary artists. I can see Tony Albert, who's trying to hide in the corner at the back, spotted him out. Tony has got a fabulous book about, art and practices. And so seek out those First Nations authors who are artists, but just authors, to have a look at their works. When you're teaching art practices in school, everyone's going to want to do iconography. You know, that is subject symboling, you know. It's not appropriation if you're going to teach your kids how to do a U for a bottom on a seat, a digging stick and stuff like that. Start with that, because that's where the Western Desert art movement first began. You know, between that and Albert Namatjira in watercolours, this is what we were all taught at schools. Nowadays, with our technology, we can see so much more. You know, so much more art is available, so many different art practices right throughout Australia, from the East Coast to Central Australia to Western Australia. But yeah, there's wonderful colouring books. There are so many online activities, actually. You know, you see online activities in all the institutions are available for their exhibitions. So start with that and make it your own.
Thank you, Kelly. And that might be a nice point to promote our Emily Kama and Wari learning resource, which is available online and written by our First Nations learning educators, Maggie and Noah, who you'll meet across the course of the conference. Thank you, Kelly. Two final questions. Is there a current relationship between the Indonesian batik artists and Emily Kama and Wari's community?
Ongoing. I couldn't say that. What is really, really strong is, I did not mention this, but the Utopia Batik women, and there were two men, I should say, in that group, even though they were happy for it to be called Batik Women's, what was it called, the Batik Women? Sorry. Three of the Pitjantjatjara ladies came from Unabella, which is a community in South Australia, came over to Utopia to help teach them to make the batik. I know for a fact that Unabella is still making batik. I mean, it's a really tricky practice to continue. Unabella is one of the oldest established art centres in Australia. It not only does painting but amazing ceramics, but they are reviving the batik. So I do know that Utopia Art Centre is not doing batik. They do not have the skills to do it. It's a financial sort of, it's quite a lot of money to actually do the batik practice. But I do know Sophia Lunn, who's running it, would like to get it going again. And we're fortunate enough, I know you're going to mention this, to have an amazing batik workshop coming up. And so maybe we'll have a chat about how we can get the ladies and, you know, to come back to Utopia once we get some funding to help that make that happen.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Kelly. And our final question, what are you excited about for the future? That's a big question.
For this exhibition?
For this exhibition, yeah.
Look, the exhibition goes to the 28th of April. You know, it's really lovely. As the curator who lives here in Canberra, Hetty lives back in Alice Springs. I'm the one who has to do the tours all the time. So, you know, my tours are obviously official tours with, you know, diplomats and anyway down to someone's best friend down the road. So I'm just really happy that people are enjoying this exhibition. I'm just hoping that, you know, we've spent quite a bit of work doing the didactics to try to make those wall texts not simplified but readable. I go to exhibitions and I will walk away from a wall label if it's too academic, too over my head, you know, and I can't get it. And then I just get art drain and art fatigue. I hope that when you see this exhibition, you feel, like I said, the warmth and the energy of this exhibition, and you feel like you want to spend some time. After this exhibition closes here, we talked about it going to the Tate, so that is really exciting. That is a whole new exhibition, and we'll see if I'm still here to follow that through. But yeah, I'm just happy with how it's really has come to be, and just so privileged to have worked in that community. It's an absolute honour and privilege, and I could not have done it without the community members.
Oh, thank you so much, Kelly, for being with us and for sharing so generously about your practice and thinking about the acts of repositioning that have been really important in curating this show. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Please join me in thanking Kelli. Just before we move on, I have a few announcements. For our online audience, it's now time to farewell you for today. We look forward to seeing you online again tomorrow morning for our keynote presentation with artist Ming Wong at 9:45 a.m. A reminder that you can find your sessions via the agenda on the left-hand side of the conference platform. Please reach out to the digital help desk via the conference platform if you need any assistance. For our on-site audience, a few announcements for you. If you would like to, we are about to head into our special Emily Nware viewing, but if you would like to go back into the exhibition over the period of the conference, you may redeem your Emily Karma Nware ticket online or at the visitor desk at front of house as you come into the main entry of the gallery. If you have not already registered for your workshops, please go and speak to Joe and my colleagues at our help desk. You can do that this evening or tomorrow from 8 a.m. And finally, you are allowed to take your conference tote bags and other small bags into the exhibition space. Thank you for keeping your water bottles inside your bags while you're in the exhibition. So we're about to go to our exhibition viewing. Before you view the exhibition, you might like to partake in a welcome drink or refreshment. They're being served just outside the main theatre to your left. The nearest bathrooms are located to the right as you leave the theatre. Our staff are here to help with directions, so please don't hesitate to ask. You'll see them in their National Gallery T-shirts. Both the welcome drinks and the exhibition viewing will finish at 6:20 p.m. and we ask that you exit the main doors by 6:30. Breakfast is available tomorrow morning in Gandel Hall from 8:30 a.m. and our registration desk will be open from 8 if you need any assistance or if you need to enrol in a workshop. Thank you so much, Kelli. Thank you so much to the team. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you tomorrow. Enjoy your evening.